So spring is here and blooms are everywhere. So I've really been painting a lot of flowers lately, and in organizing some of those photos, I came across a coral rose that I'd saved going through social media. I think Pinterest probably. This one is by Stephanie Mulrooney. It says S. Mulrooney Prince. Is what the name was on it when I saved the print, but that's what I'm drawing here. I'm going to change it a little bit. Of course, it's not going to look exact or anything like that, but choosing some of the buds that I like the placement of, some of the leaves and stuff, and then just not drawing what I don't like. But for the most part, I don't always draw on the paper, especially when doing watercolor, because if I feel like it's something I'm going to erase here and there, it can really affect the paper. Although a lot of times when it's organic stuff like flowers and nature and stuff, I can get away with it because nothing has to be perfect. You don't have to erase as much and what have you. So sometimes I'll do it like this. Sometimes I will draw it on a separate sheet of paper and then kind of take tracing paper over it and either scribble on the back or take carbon paper to it. Or sometimes I draw it on the iPad and I have carbon paper that I can run through the printer and just print right on that. And it does a pretty good job of not getting everywhere and not, being too dark or anything, especially if you don't press too hard. But so deciding to draw this rose, it's kind of like a coral rose. In my mind, I was going to do it a little bit more yellow and kind of maybe fade to the corally, orangey red kind of colors. So I took out the Mission Gold paints, which I haven't painted with in a really long time. Really great paints, but because they're in kind of their own palette, sometimes I can forget about it. It just sits to the side. But I have gotten those out, and then I was going through scraps of paper. I try to save all, especially the good paper, and cut it down into sizes that I would use for different pieces. I also, over the years, have done a few different art subscriber, art subscription accounts, and so a lot of times, especially in the beginning, they would send you whatever new art supply and then like a couple sheets of paper that went with it. A lot of the ones now, or at least the last ones that I've done with, I know Scrawler Rocks was one that I did, one out of Germany, and what's just the one that gives you the pretzel sticker. They usually send now with the premium box, like it's your own pad of whatever. So I don't really have to worry about it anymore. But along the way, sometimes these scraps, I'd use one of the paper and save some. And I would try to remember to write in pencil on the back, what kind of paper and stuff. Well, apparently I wasn't always very good at it. And so I have a mystery paper here, which I really thought was watercolor, but now I'm not really so sure. So I've kind of mixed there like a, yellowy, golden colors and then into, orangey, corally, into the reds so that I can so I wet the petals that I was going to paint first, trying to make sure there's a space, like a petal in between so that, because, when you do watercolor, water follows water. So if I did two petals next to each other, they're going to definitely run into each other, right? So you can see it's like acting funny for watercolor paper. It's like spreading a little bit, but it's just behaving different. I couldn't figure it out. I think now I've come to the decision that it is not watercolor paper. I think it's like a premium paper, but I think it's like either like a drawing paper or print paper, like something that's not made for watercolor. And so around this stage, I'm realizing it. I was, wetting each petal and stuff. And as I realized this, I was, either I could give up and just kind of trash the paper because I've half painted on it, or I could kind of change the way I'm painting it and try to just make the best out of it and see what it'll do. And so while I was first wetting the petals at first, and see how like it just picks everything right back up that you painted too if you're not careful on that last petal, if you just saw. Um, so I was kind of changing my approach from petal to petal because the paper is just so different, trying to see what would work the best. And it seems like it works a little bit better not putting the water down because it was like way too much on there and it was kind of watering it down a lot. You can see that one at the bottom that we started off with, like it's got no color at all on it. So I went a little bit more color heavy and tried to kind of do a base color and then charge more colors into it. It's really interesting because you can see as some of them dry, which it seemed to take a little while to dry too, instead of drying quickly, but it kind of outlines it. It's kind of a cool effect, really. As I kept going, each petal would kind of have like an outline effect, which sometimes can happen on regular watercolor paper, especially if you have like a lot of puddle of watercolor paint or whatever in one area. But I really wasn't doing that on these. I was sopping up a lot of the extra wetness and stuff. So this, I can't say that I used one technique. I mean, there's like, I tried lots of different stuff with the different petals, like wet on wet, wet on dry, and charging the colors in there. And I kind of came to like a definitely wet on dry and definitely, petting each petal separate and letting it kind of dry up before I went to the petal next to it. But sometimes I would do another layer if I didn't catch it to charge the color into it. But it was certainly unique, it just got me thinking, like trying to do watercolor, so stuck on, using good watercolor paper to get the best result. But sometimes, you try different things, you can get some cool results, and I'm fighting the paper in one kind of aspect, but not really, as I'm kind of just going with the flow as well. I didn't have anything like crazy in mind other than to just kind of go for painting a rose, which it's kind of weird that roses are like, I would say probably one of the most popular flowers, and it's much botanical and as much nature and flowers that I paint. I really don't know if I've painted another rose. If I have, it hasn't been very many, which is kind of crazy to think about. I think maybe because I tried to, more unique, more, I guess, more unique ones or whatever. I did take some really cool photos in the garden, though, of the purple rose that bloomed, and it really bloomed and opened so quickly. But I went out, it was a bud, and I thought I'd had enough time, and it was already opening that next morning. And so I took a lot of pictures of that, so I'll probably be painting up some of those. Also, I've been doing walks every day, so on those walks, I'll try to take a lot of pictures of nature. I've got everything from woodpeckers in the trees to cats showing me their present of lizard hanging out of their mouth. It was crazy. She came trotting up to me, and I was like, what is hanging out of that? I thought he had like a beard or something for a minute, and it was like a long tail coming from his mouth, and I realized he was showing me his prized possession of lizard that he caught. So these walks, even a bunny rabbit, the other week, I saw this flash of white run through as I'm walking by, and so I was kind of chasing it through the shrubs to get a decent picture. So I will probably do a painting of him, but it's kind of opened my eyes to do not just pictures that I'm seeing, like this lovely picture, but stuff of real life nature that's kind of, if you keep your eyes open, there's really a lot to see. Even in, I mean, it's not like I live in a rural area. It's a neighborhood, So anyway, like it's the rose, I'm still going, petal making sure they're separated. But you can see it's like got this kind of cool outline going. Very, very watercolory look. It's kind of hard for it to hold on to like dark colors. It seems like they really, really dry a lot lighter, which, I mean, everything dries, looks a little different and it dries. And it's common to do that a little bit, but this does it a lot. So kind of charged back some colors through there, but it's got the really kind of unique look to it, I think. Almost like a stained glass kind of look. So I'm seeing what I can do with these petals and stuff down here. There's one bud that I'm painting there, and then there's another bud and some leaves. And so you can see on that leaf that I just painted, like painted it with the lighter color and then charged some of the darker color. And sometimes I can get it to kind of fade into it. And then you'll see with this lower leaf, it kind of just clumps and stays there in the middle and dries funny. Like, it's definitely not watercolor paper, but I am happy with the end result. I mean, it looks very unique. And while it's not exactly yellow or coral, it's a cool, unique blend of, the petals kind of changing colors and stuff. And I guess what I'm saying, I'm glad I didn't give up on it. I think a lot of times, things aren't going exactly the way we want. And so we kind of give up on it, or start something again or try again. I think I can say that I've learned more. This is the leaf I was talking about. When I charge in with like a darker color, it just kind of clumps and sits there. It's very strange. See, it's like, well, but it's kind of interesting at the same time. I erased a little bit of the lines where I don't like it, but kept some of the ones in the middle. But I have definitely can say that I've learned more over the past little while, every year or so. I've really trying to make sure I've been going back to pieces that I've kind of put by the wayside for whatever reason. Either it wasn't going the way I wanted or just, wasn't happy with it for whatever reason. And I think that's that perfectionist in us. And I think that you can learn so much more by finishing the pieces, regardless of how you feel about them. I think there's always stuff to learn from them, whether it is learning to go about something different or to not use a certain paper or to try some different papers because it might have a different, it might turn out differently than you think. I think a lot of things, there's so many different ugly stages when you're working on watercolor and stuff that you gotta just finish them and trust in the process, right? Thank you guys so much. And I will see you next time.